My MTC experience was really cool in the sense that I was called to be a Spanish-speaking missionary. And so I remember, honestly, the first day, I remember like after an hour, I was like, I'd taken Spanish in high school for like 4 years. And I was like, we've gone over everything that I know in 1 hour. I was like, I am doomed. But it was just this awesome experience. So I was in the MTC actually for 10 weeks. So I was in there for 9 weeks to learn Spanish, and then 1 additional week they train visitor center sisters a little bit differently. And looking back on my MTC experience, it was just so sacred because once I got to the field, it's really interesting, I never actually served in a Spanish area. I never got assigned to a Spanish ward or anything like that. So the extent of my Spanish use was like talking to maids that opened the door for super rich people in Malibu and then like random people on the street. And so when I look back to my experience in the MTC, it was so much more than just learning a language, but I think God was just trying to shape my heart always, which is like the theme of this whole thing. But I just look back on that time and it was so sacred because it was just like this refining process for me once again. And so I'm so grateful though that I look back and was able to have that experience. And I think the only thing that I wish that I would have done differently is I was just so focused on like, I've got to learn the language, I've got to learn the language, I've got to learn the language, rather than I need to change my heart and I need to refine my heart. And I think those things happen incidentally, but not necessarily intentionally. And so I just wish I would have changed that, but gosh, the MTC was just such a good place. Learning the Spanish language for me was super interesting. I said earlier, honestly, within an hour, I was like, I don't know anything. And so, but I realized, I recognized that if I could not speak the language, then I could not be the instrument that God needed for me to be. So a lot of the people in my MTC district, they almost hated me because I was just like, only speak in Spanish, like I will only do that. And so they'd ask me a question, I respond in Spanish. So like, oh my gosh, Sister Jones, just answer us in English, and I wouldn't do it. But I think the thing with learning the language that was most helpful for me, honestly, when it started to click, is I would just read the English and the Spanish side by side, and I wouldn't go on until I understood why the placement of the words was or what those words were. So sometimes a verse would take me like 20 minutes, and it was just so tedious, but it was really fascinating. I mean, once I got to like chapter 12 of First Nephi, it was like, okay, I'm starting to understand how this is a little bit. And so that was super nice. But I think the thing that you just have to be courageous, because I mean, if you're afraid of looking dumb, you just got to stop being afraid, because you're going to look dumb when you try to speak a new language. But so often, more often than not, I mean, people are just so kind to help you, you know, like people like, oh, so many cute Hispanic people to be like, oh, Sister Jones, like, that's not what you're supposed to say. And I'm like, okay, sorry, like, help me, what am I supposed to say? And so the more I found that I just tried to speak and tried to communicate, God was just so nice in filling my mouth.